Hello! This is Parker Brisebois, Parker Thomas Brisebois, person's name, and you are watching, once again, the Iridescent. And man, do we have a show for you today. I've received a special request to do a debate review, 2020 first presidential debate review for today's episode, and that, you bet your ass, that's what I'm going to be doing. But first, a word from our sponsors. This episode of the Iridescent is brought to you again by No Hawks Nation. Tired of the Seattle Seahawks cheating? Tired of the 12th man? Tired of that one friend who encompasses all things you hate about the Seahawks? If you or a loved one deals with this on a daily basis, you are not alone. Here at No Hawks Nation, we provide a support system for you to safely discuss anything anti-Seahawks. It is completely anonymous and covered by most insurances. You are not alone in this fight. Give us a call today. And the contact information, once again, is my Instagram account at The Iridescent Show on Instagram. That, people, is where divisiveness belongs in our country, in fan bases for fucking football teams. Not in politics as it stands, but here we fucking are. Today's art. It's a bong. I call this bad boy the Dirty Wizard, back from when I used to partake in the marijuana, which, again, I no longer do. I got this from a dirty old man who worked at the pizza place with me. He had some crazy story about where he got it. You know, one of the beatniks gave it to him at a fucking electric acid Kool-Aid test party one time. It's kind of gross looking, don't you think? It's a bong from the 80s, so bong tech was pretty low at that point. But it did have, you know, this nifty high grip technology, which kind of looks like some kind of STD on that thing. God, is it gross. It could stand to be cleaned, but I don't smoke out of it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. PER. I think that's the signature of the artist. Oh god, it smells like shit. That's pretty neat. Bongs are cool. You think about drug paraphernalia throughout history. There's a lot of art that goes into this, and isn't it mind-boggling to think about the lengths we'll go to, humans, in terms of creativity to enhance our drug-taking experience? Being sentient in this world is just so unbearable that we need to heighten our ability to get fucked up by inventing cool stuff like this. And, you know, when you're pursuing those endeavors anyway, you might as well get aesthetic about it, right? And you could do a lot better job than the Dirty Wizard, but, I mean, for its time, it's pretty nifty, you know? I'm going to leave this out of the shot, because I feel like having a bong where my art normally is will detract from the seriousness of this episode. And fuck, do we have a serious episode for you. Not really, because that debate wasn't serious. Holy shit, what a clusterfuck. Because, man, those guys are old. That's the first thought I had when I was watching it, was just, either way this goes, the United States could credibly be described as a gerontocracy by the end of it. And a gerontocracy is a term for rule by the ancients. No disrespect for our senior fellows or anything. Obviously, I think they have every right to a happy existence and to be unbothered and be unaccosted. But the thing is, the older you get, there's this thing called cognitive decline. And the fact that we can keep humans alive and in reasonably good health till basically 100 years old now means that there's plenty of people walking around with, you know, a quarter of a brain just due to old age alone. And maybe I'm being ageist, but I don't think I have much of a demographic that's over 80 watching this show. That being said, my grandmother is well over 80, and she's still sharp as a tack. So, back to the debate. First thought was on the general format. 2020, here we are in the year of the corona killer and social distancing. Lots of space between people so that they don't breathe on each other. Isn't it a mindfuck to think about like how much breathing on strangers you used to do before 2020 and vice versa? That's a lot of foreign particulate just because you're riding a bus. The general format, they're in this hall. There's only like 100 people there, members of the press. the fucking royal family, all the Trumps are there. I know Mrs. Biden, whose first name escapes me, was there, but I don't know about any of his kids. But I thought that had the general emptiness of the venue had a pretty substantial effect on the outcome or the result of the debate, if there you can say there was one. And that is that there just simply wasn't a crowd for Trump to play to. You know, not only was there nobody there, but they went over the rules beforehand with the limited audience that was there, that stated that there would be no cheering, no booing, no crowd noise whatsoever. And I think that seriously hurt Trump, because in years past, 2016, the dude could get his supporters riled up, and as a television viewer, crowd noise affects my heuristic understanding of how the debate's going. You know, we want to keep score. Everybody wants to talk about who won the debate because America is so sports brain, no ties allowed, no nuance allowed. We want to keep score, right? So we think about debates in terms of winners and losers. And because there's no scoreboard, because it's absurd to try to score a debate in this format, we look to other cues like crowd noise and just vibes in general. You know, I wish we looked more towards legitimate points being made or compelling positions being taken, but we don't. We look more towards jeers and boos and who's looking like they're getting picked on and who's looking like they're daddying the other person. And without a crowd, Trump was hamstrung in that sense. He's an entertainer. He is a provocateur. If he's good at anything, he's good at that. And without that, the debate was much more of a putting the two candidates in a petri dish under a microscope and listening to what they actually have to say. Now, Trump did everything in his power to make it very difficult to understand what either of them were saying, but without the crowd there as well, he couldn't benefit from that noise, from that energy, which he normally caters to and normally has the advantage with, because he's a fucking WWE fucking wrestler guy, right? It was at Case Western University, and this was the Fox debate. Fun fact, Case Western Reserve University is where Bill Belichick played college football at. And once upon a time in 2013, I scored a touchdown against them. And that's only a big deal because I did not score a lot of those. But that's where it went down. That was the Fox debate. As far as I understand, each of the major media networks gets to pick a venue, pick a moderator for each of the debates, because there's going to be 4 of them. And this was Fox News's. And the moderator they chose was Chris Wallace, who's the most centrist guy on Fox. He's technically allowed to call himself a journalist because he's not on Fox News' white nationalist hour when Hannity and Tucker Carlson and all the entertainment guys, all the culture warriors come on. He's part of their actual journalism team. Now, a lot of people in talking about the debate afterwards shat all over Chris Wallace. They said he was ineffective at controlling them, the Joe and Donald. He was rude. He interrupted. People on the left said he was doing the whole both sides thing, you know. Hey, both of you, calm down. You're both being very loud, very, very disrespectful, and please respect the rules. And both of you are fucking up. My opinion, I think Chris Wallace did a pretty good job. And I say that, one, because I think people have a very short memory. And in 2016, none of the moderators made a concerted effort to get anybody to stop. And when I say anybody, I mean Trump, because Trump's the one who does this. But none of the moderators made any attempt to impose the rules on the candidates as they were talking. And Chris Wallace actually did that. There were more than a handful of times when he said, okay, it's your turn to talk. It's your turn to talk. Mr. President, for the love of God, your team, your campaign agreed to the rules. And frankly, you're doing more interrupting than Joe did. people overlook that. They feel like they're that Chris Wallace got caught up in the both sidesedness and made it seem like Joe was being just as rude as Trump. But there were a couple moments when he explicitly asked Don to shut the fuck up because he was the one doing most of the interrupting. And those sound bites are powerful. And I think he definitely benefited from the fact that there was no crowd behind him because, I would hate to be a moderator in a crowded stadium where half the people there are Trumpers who, are getting as fired up as a WWE event, and they're shouting me down when I'm trying to tell their guy to shut the fuck up. Donald Trump did everything he could to wriggle his way out of that and just keep talking, trying to steamroll him. But I feel like between Biden and Chris Wallace, they did a pretty good job stiff-arming his attempts to just talk over everybody. And talk over might be a strong word because he wasn't even he wasn't making points. He was just yelling numbers about Hunter Biden. He was just saying, you would have done worse. You would have done worse. No, you would have wanted blah, blah, blah. So Chris Wallace, honestly, dude, I'm giving you a B- for moderating that. And that's a much more generous grade than I thought I was going to give you. In terms of things that were said out the gate, I was nervous and terrified. I didn't think this debate was going to go well for my side because I thought it was going to devolve into just a shit fest where Trump got Joe off topic and just talking about nothing. And we all know that when people are talking about nothing, Trump wins because he's the best at talking about nothing. He's a bullshit artist. Early on, Trump hit him really hard with some messaging that he was a communist, a socialist. He was going to get rid of private health insurance, which again, I don't know why anybody is stoked about private health insurance, but he was hitting them with the right-wing party line that you're a communist and you're going to tax everybody and blah, 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 and you want the Green New Deal and that's not going to let me eat hamburgers in my diesel truck or whatever. But Joe stood pretty firm on that early on, and he had this moment where he looked Chris Wallace, I think, square in the eyes and said, I am the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is the Democratic Party. And when I watched that, I thought, that was fucking weird. I didn't feel comfortable with that because it really feels like the Democratic Party being the big tent that it is and having so many people's interests at heart, if I'm being charitable, because there's so many different interests in the big tent, some of them sort of butt heads with each other. Joe Biden taking it upon himself to be the embodiment of a party that he probably only represents some of felt really weird, especially because I don't feel like my specific political positions are fully aligned with Joe Biden's. But upon reflection, I kind of think that was a strong move because this debate ultimately was just an opportunity for them to flex on each other. Of course, they're not going to get into the weeds about policy. It just is an exercise in keeping up appearances and trying to give supporters a sense of conviction that they've got the right guy. And in the era of Trump, politics has devolved into a lot of tours de force, and Joe going up there and saying, I am the party, and really kind of rattling that saber was a demonstration of at least the idea of a Democratic Party that isn't going to back down from taking its own side in a fight, right? So at first thought it was kind of weird, but the idea of a united Democratic Party just got me so fired up that upon reflection, I was kind of into it. One thing Joe absolutely very clearly nailed, in my opinion, was staring directly into the camera and enumerating the ways in which Trump's decisions, Trump's outlook, Trump's policies have not been in the interest of protecting the American people economically or from a health standpoint in any way. I thought he was pretty clear, very direct on that. And that was one of his most powerful points in the debate, because Trump simply did not have an answer for it. And by speaking to us about the promise of an administration that can do something for us in terms of making our lives better, is exactly what I think everybody wishes politicians would be doing a little more of, talking about how they can help the country get back on track, how the work they do in DC can improve the lives, the health, the economic standing of all of us. Trump has never been interested in doing that. Trump has always been self-interested and interested in protecting the interests of the old boys club of the corporate elite that he aspires to be a part of, the robber barons, the robber baron class of America. And that was very apparent in this debate. The only thing he could hang his hat on, Trump, that is, was stock market prices being good. And who does that actually benefit? It's people, it's the investing class, it's hedge fund managers, it's executives, it's corporate America. And Biden looked straight into the camera and he talked about how he was riled up to get into the White House to do his part to help working class families all across the country. He also stood strong on positions where Trump was flinging buzzwords at him like Antifa, and he sort of shook his head and said, man, Antifa's an idea. Trump was big time all about the buzzwords last night. He kept throwing around far left extremism. He said law and order as much as he could. He said the China plague. He was just trying to play the greatest hits, the 2-3 word greatest hits for his people. And honestly, normally that works for him because he can, like I said earlier, go in front of a crowd and just say one of those things and they'll get riled up and start cheering. Back in 2016, one of his favorites was radical Islamic extremism. You won't even say it. You won't even say it. Well, he tried again to run that play on Joe, but this time it was with Law and Order, and that fell flat as fuck. Joe handled it pretty well, and he honestly got the benefit of Trump trying to shout over him because it made the weaker part of his response more difficult to hear. At first, Trump said, you won't even say law and order. You won't come out and support law and order. And Joe says, I do support law and a little bit of order, which is a fucking weird, weak statement to make. But while he was making it, Trump was just screaming over him about Antifa or something. And Joe gathered himself. And then when Chris Wallace finally got the fucking Joker Jack-in-the-Box Trump to kind of get back in his box for a split second, Joe said, I support law and order in a just system. And that was nailed. That was nailed. Because that's part of the Republican shit-flinging playbook, is just to throw ideographs at a Democrat and try to get them to take a yes or no stance on it when it's obviously a more complicated issue than that, to try to get them in a gotcha moment where they are beset upon to betray their base in favor of trying to cater to the middle. And I think Joe nailed that. God, another low light for old Trumpito was Chris Wallace, dude. Again, I really think Chris Wallace was, if not an unsung hero, he was a brave squire in this fight. And he asked him point blank, he says, will you condemn white supremacy? And did you think Trump handled that gotcha, that buzzword gotcha? No, of course he didn't. He failed to condemn white supremacy point blank. And he said some weird shit about how the Proud Boys need stand down and stand by. Like, hang in there, brothers, is what it sounded like. And Joe didn't bury him for that, but holy shit, I don't think he needs to. You know, it feels cathartic. It feels like a gotcha moment for him. But who the fuck are we kidding? White supremacists are his base. You know, there are Trump supporters who aren't white supremacists, although they're probably white supremacist sympathizers, whether they realize it or not. But the hardcore white supremacists are all Trump supporters, and they're part of his rock solid base. And he knows he can't condemn them, so he didn't. And fuck, man, if you are one of the theoretical middle voters, and race is an important issue to you, the equitable treatment of all Americans matters to you, then that should be a signal that this should not be your guy. Being conscientious of systemic injustice is not only important, but absolutely critical for the survival of the Republic and its ability to improve itself and advance and grow in a positive way that's more equitable for most Americans. This came up when they were talking about Trump's decision to cancel training for White House staff that involved a critical race theory. Trump has made a decision to eliminate programs to educate people on the shortcomings of the American system. And the reason he's doing that is because, in his own words, those ideas are anti-American. They say that America is a bad place. Well, I don't think it is out of the question for anybody who has two eyes, a brain, has ever read any history, who's existed in America for any amount of time. It's not out of the question for them to acknowledge that while America might be their country, their favorite country, a great country even, it is also a flawed country. And self-respecting adults, people of caliber and worth, can accept shortcomings in themselves and the things they're part of, and should, if they're moral people, aspire to improve those. And I thought Joe did an exceptional job of sort of spoon-feeding that to the parts of America that really think that they're great but somehow want to get great again, and the way they think that they're going to get greater than the great that they already are and get great again is by doubling down on bigoted, antiquated worldviews that are exclusionary and oppressive and unjust. Trump didn't really talk about anything, like in a positive sense. You know, he harped about how the economy is doing good or whatever, but one thing that people don't realize is that when anybody talks about the economy or how their economy's doing or how the economy's doing on their watch, that's totally misleading, because economic policy doesn't have immediate observable impacts. Most of them come down the line, right? So, you know, an economic policy that's put into effect 1 year, you're not going to see the full effects of that in terms of the stock market or however you measure the economy until months to a year to a couple years down the road. And yet people still think Trump's super good for the economy, and that's because he wants to deregulate and has deregulated a bunch of environmental regulations, consumer protection, you know, just generally corporatist Republican shit, good for big business. But it didn't feel coherent. One of the only pseudo good faith arguments I hear from pseudo rational Trump supporters is he's good for the economy. And I don't think that was demonstrated in the debate at all. I think that continued to hurt Trump. Much like the fact that he couldn't look into the camera at all. He didn't once look into the camera. Joe made a point to do that over and over again. And I felt like that had an impact. It felt like between him saying, "Will you just shut up?" and "You're a clown, man." Like, Joe's dismissiveness came across as a form of strength, a stiff arm, as it were, on this clown who just wanted to have a food fight with him, while he, who is attempting to be president, was trying to have an earnest discussion with the American people and how he's going to try to improve their lives when he wins the office. And Trump just simply was not interested in doing that at all. He wanted to have an argument about the misbehavior of their sons, who are both just naughty rich boys. You know, who the fuck cares? Yeah. Speaking of naughty rich boys, and I'll wrap it up here. The Donald Jr. interview afterwards was so fucking funny. This dude is coked out of his mind all the time. I highly recommend you watch it. But, you know, he was just asked, I forget the name of the woman anchor, but she asked him, so how come your dad seemed so nervous when he was trying to steamroll the moderator and Joe by just talking about, you know, bullshit and hurling ad hominem attacks and talking about stuff that didn't make sense. And Don's just up there. It's because he's a fighter. He's been fighting for the American people. And if you want to talk about fighting, I want to fight Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is the one who needs to get up here. And frankly, I want to see that debate. I don't care about any more debate between the presidential candidates. I don't care about a vice presidential debate. Actually, that's going to be entertaining. I do want to see one of those. The debate I want to see is Don Jr., Hunter Biden, cocaine debate. I understand Hunter is off the juice. Don definitely isn't. But, dude, we need you to get back in the ring one more time. Just a couple lines and just get up there and fucking shout at that prick. And just do it for the people. Overall, Joe did way better than I expected. His points were focused. They were directed at the American people. He appeared to not have any patience for Trump's bullshit. But he also didn't let Trump's bullshit stand. You know, the polite media wrings their hands about him saying, like, you're the worst president ever, man, or will you just shut up, or you're a clown. But honestly, that makes me into Joe more, because God, wouldn't it feel great to just be able to say that to 45? So watching old Joe do that made me feel a little better about the potential gerontocracy we'll have when he wins and Democrats get back in the White House. Anyways, I look forward to the next debate. I think I'll do another review of that one. I hope you've appreciated my analysis. Yeah, next episode coming soon. Be sure to like and subscribe. We just got to 50 subscribers. Let's fucking go. Ad space for sale. You know, our reach is expanding. So hit me up if you want a shout out or whatever. Parker Brisebois, you've been watching the Iridescent. Peace.